Right now, as you're taking in this explainer, you're using a device that relies entirely on an invisible web. I mean, it connects literally almost everything around us. Your phone, your bank, your job, how you get your news, it's all completely tethered to the internet. But I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine a sudden, total digital blackout. No emergency warnings, no slow, buffering connection, just an abrupt, complete drop to absolute zero connectivity all over the world. What actually happens to our society, to our economy, and honestly, to our own minds, if the internet simply vanishes for exactly 24 hours?
Seriously, let's mentally test our own reliance on the web right now. If you woke up tomorrow morning, reached for your phone, and the screen just stayed dark, what would you do? How would you buy your groceries? How would you even let your family know you're okay? We take this massive, invisible infrastructure so completely for granted that we rarely stop to think about the terrifying reality of a sudden global outage. We're not just talking about a boring day without social media, we're talking about a day where the modern world effectively just grinds to a complete halt. Okay, let's dive into this, because the visceral, everyday failures would hit you the very exact second the web dies. The first thing you'd notice? Just silence. Boom. No WhatsApp messages coming through, no iMessage. Decide to go grab a coffee while you wait it out? Well, your digital payments fail at the register. Credit cards? Useless. ATMs freeze entirely. Obviously, remote work pauses immediately. And if you think you'll just go home and wait it out with a movie, think again, because every single streaming platform is pitch black.
What sets in next is this incredibly eerie, sudden digital quiet. Breaking news wouldn't spread instantly anymore. There are no live push notifications, no trending topics on X. Information would literally be forced to move at the speed of word of mouth again. And without digital payments, physical paper cash would suddenly matter in a way it hasn't in years. Supply chains would instantly lose all their tracking capabilities. And while flights that are already up in the air would keep flying, the cascading logistical delays on the ground would multiply by the minute. The entire globe, which is so incredibly used to light-speed digital efficiency, would just profoundly slow down.
Now, if this is sounding like pure science fiction to you, it really isn't. We've actually had massive, real-world dress rehearsals for this exact scenario. Take July 2022, for example. Canada experienced the massive Rogers Communications outage. The cause? A seemingly routine software maintenance update where a single routing filter was accidentally deleted. Just a software hiccup. Compare that to Arizona back in 2015, where vandals just went out into the desert and physically cut a major fiber optic cable, bringing the internet from Flagstaff all the way to Phoenix completely to its knees. Both of these events prove that just one single point of failure can trigger a massive systemic collapse. To really put the sheer scale of those vulnerabilities into perspective, 12 million. That is the staggering number of subscribers left completely 100% offline during that 2022 Rogers outage in Canada. We are talking about roughly 25% of the entire country losing connectivity all at the exact same time. And it wasn't just that people couldn't browse the web. It took down the Interact network. That meant businesses nationwide couldn't accept a single debit transaction, regardless of who their own internet provider was.
And here is where mere personal inconvenience morphs into a genuine, terrifying public safety crisis. The very infrastructure we rely on for survival gets threatened. During that Rogers blackout, 911 calls completely failed. There was actually a tragic report of a man in Hamilton who couldn't reach emergency services while his sister was dying. In that Arizona outage, authorities literally had to supplement 911 dispatchers with handheld radios just to communicate. Meanwhile, oncology patients who needed radiation therapy had their hospital appointments abruptly canceled, and essential government services, like passport offices and revenue agencies, just ground to a total halt.
So the crucial point is the absolute staggering financial bleeding that follows all that physical chaos. If the internet went down for a single day all over the world, economists estimate that the global economy would lose $43 billion in just 24 hours. Because modern business practices have so overwhelmingly moved to cloud-based functionality, a day without the internet is essentially a day without commerce, without production, and without global trade.
To make that massive $43 billion number a bit more concrete, let's break down the hardest-hit countries. The United States would absolutely take the heaviest blow, losing an estimated $11 billion in a single day. China follows pretty closely behind at $9.8 billion, and the UK sits at $3.8 billion. When you consider that the web generates around 6% of the entire US economy, the financial hemorrhage of a total 24-hour blackout becomes incredibly clear, doesn't it? But you know what's truly eye-opening? What happens when political authorities intentionally pull the plug?
Researchers at the Brookings Institution have highlighted that disrupting internet activity completely prevents impacted nations from reaping any benefits of the digital economy. For instance, when Egyptian authorities purposefully shut down their entire internet for 5 days back in 2011 to disrupt street protests, it cost their economy $90 million. It proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, how fragile and yet totally vital digital integration really is to a modern state.
And if we drill this down to the individual level, rigorous economic modeling shows that every single day of an internet shutdown costs roughly $86.58 per person, on average. Furthermore, economists estimate that just a 1 percentage point increase in the likelihood of a country experiencing internet shutdowns is associated with a massive 15.6 percentage point reduction in that country's GDP per capita. So this isn't just about lost corporate profits for the big guys, it is a direct, measurable hit to the wealth and livelihood of everyday citizens like you and me.
It is also fascinating to see how this cascading failure destroys specific sectors by the hour. Look at this. The energy sector bleeds $2.48 million every single hour it's offline. Telecommunications loses $2 million an hour, retail drops $1.1 million, and healthcare loses over $636,000 an hour. Even a few minutes of downtime is catastrophic. In the highly automated auto industry, for example, downtime costs them roughly $50,000 per minute. Per minute!
But if you want to see true, mind-boggling financial hemorrhage, just look at big tech's losses per minute when the digital marketplace goes dark. Amazon leads the pack here, losing an estimated $1 million every single minute the internet is inaccessible. Google loses $500,000 a minute, and Meta drops $221,000 every 60 seconds. For these tech giants, a 24-hour blackout means watching literally billions of dollars in revenue just burn right before their eyes.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the psychological whiplash we would all experience. Way beyond the economics, a total internet blackout acts as an involuntary global digital detox. And research into social media abstinence shows that sudden disconnection induces legitimate withdrawal-like symptoms. We're talking widespread irritability, highly elevated stress, and an intense fear of missing out, especially among heavy users. The psychological shock to a society that is constantly, endlessly stimulated by notifications would be profound and honestly incredibly uncomfortable. However, as the initial panic of the day subsides, a really surprising silver lining might actually emerge. Think about it. Without screens to stare at, the streets would feel quieter. People would actually have to talk to each other face-to-face to get information. Books would finally open. Old radios would be dusted off just to listen for broadcast updates. Forced out of our little digital silos, local communities would inevitably have to reconnect in the physical world. For all the economic chaos it would cause, a 24-hour blackout would forcefully remind us of our shared physical humanity.
Of course, it is way better to be prepared than to just sit around waiting for a silver lining. So here are 4 actionable takeaways you can use right now to protect your own digital life before a blackout strikes. First, back up your essential data so it's accessible offline. Second, invest in an uninterrupted power supply, or a UPS, to keep your local network running briefly. Third, download offline maps of your local area directly to your phone. And finally, keep physical documents of your key contacts, bank info, and medical records. Because, let's face it, the cloud isn't going to save you if the sky falls. When the internet inevitably returned after our hypothetical 24 hours, everything would just rush back at once, right? The messages, the alerts, the sheer noise of it all. A single day without the internet wouldn't necessarily end the world, but it absolutely proves how incredibly fragile our modern ecosystem really is. We are entirely dependent on something completely invisible. So, I'll leave you with this to think about. Could you survive tomorrow if the screens stayed dark? Take a look around your life today.